Hello friends, welcome back. In previous lecture we have seen how to create a repository on our local system and how can we add files to that one. In this lecture we are going to see what are the different stages are there in our Git repository. There is some certain procedure we should follow to add our content to Git repository. Just creating a file inside a repository doesn't add your file to repository. Whenever we create any files inside a repository, it starts tracking those files. That's it. If you want to add those files to a repository, we need to execute these commands. So first we'll understand the different stages. First thing is working area. Working area nothing but the folder which you have converted as a Git repository. We have executed git init dot right in our previous lecture. Let me show you that repository. So this is the repository which we have created in our previous lecture, and these are the files which we created. And let me open git bash over here. Let me increase the font size, and I will keep open both the screens so that it is easy for us to understand. And if I see pwd, I am under /projects demo repo, and these are the files I could see. So far we have converted this directory as a repository or else this folder as a repository, and we created these two files. So this we call it as a working area. Whenever you create any files under working area, it start tracking these files. Tracking the files doesn't mean that these files are added to repository. To add these files to repository, we should execute some certain commands. That is where I have mentioned. So if you see this one, we have files over here. Now we need to add those to index area. So index area or staging area both represents to the same. To add our files from working directory to staging area, we should execute command called git add. So git add is a command to add our files from working area to staging area. Once these files are available under staging area, we need to execute again git commit command to add these files to repository. So local repository or repository, we can add files to our local repository by using git commit command. Now let's jump back to our repository and we'll add our existing files to staging area, then repository. So to add our files to the staging area, we'll execute command called git add over there. So this is our Git repository, and we want to add these files to our staging area. For that, we should execute git add, right? And you should execute commands only on your Git bash. You cannot execute on your Windows or GUI. If you want to execute those on GUI, there is one more option, that is git GUI. Okay, so git GUI is a same thing. Instead of running your commands, you can do it from your GUI as well, like creating repository, cloning, all this stuff you can do. But most of the people, they don't use git GUI. We should use git bash only. So I'm not going to talk about git GUI in this training. We are just quitting this and we'll execute over here. We'll execute all our commands over here. Okay, so now git add and file name. So I can give git add file1. And if I want to add two files, git add file1 and file2.txt. It got as a txt extension. Why? Because we have created it from our GUI. But in Linux, whenever we create any file, it doesn't come up with any extension. Okay. So this is the one command to add our files. Other commands are git add dot. Dot nothing but in the current directory, whatever files are there, add all those files to staging area. That is another command. Another one is git add minus minus all. Okay. This is one more command which is going to add our all files to our repository. All are going to do the same activity. So we are going to use all these commands in going forward, but for now we'll do with the file name. Okay, file1 and file2 dot txt. Okay, I'm adding these two files. This is the command to add our files from working directory to staging area. So working directory nothing but whenever you initialize your repository, by default it becomes to the working directory. If you go outside of your repository, it is not working directory. It is a normal directory. That is the difference. But before executing this command, I will just execute one more command, that is git status. Git status is very useful command which tells you where is your files are located at this moment? Nothing but whether these files are at working area or else staging area, or is it committed to your repository. Now let's execute this git status command before executing git add command, and we'll see. It is saying on branch master. We are going to talk about this branch in later point of time, but until some period of time you can see only this message and no commits yet. What does it means? That there is no commits done in our repository yet. Means it is a fresh repository. I haven't added any files to our repository. We just created a repository. Under repository we created two files. Those are still under working directory. It is not yet added to our repository. And untracked files. So untracked files nothing but these files are at working area only. If it is come under to tracked, it means that staging area. Please remember, whenever the files are there in the staging area, it represents as tracked files. If it is in untracked means those are in working directory, and those are represented in the red color. Red color means it represents that those files are still at working area, not yet added to staging area. Okay, so to add these files you can use a command called git add file. Okay, this is one way to add. So same thing we are executing, right? Git add file1 and file2.txt. Same thing we are going to do to add these files to tracking, nothing but staging area. And nothing added to commit but untracked files present, which means that we haven't added any files to the staging area. If something is there in the staging area, then you can see over here nothing but those files are in the staging area. So you will understand in better way going forward. But so far what I'm going to do is, let me pull it a little bit down. I'm going to add git add file1. I'm not going to execute on both the files. We'll add only file1 to our staging area. Means file2.txt still it is at untracked or in working directory itself. Now we can see git status again. This time you can see, okay, no commits yet. We haven't done any commits, and changes to be committed, which means that these files are in the staging area. Whenever these are in staging area, it appears as a green color, and whenever those are in working directory, still it will show you in the red color. So untracked files nothing but this is still in the working directory. This is at staging area. And if you want to commit your changes to repository, you can do only on the files which are at staging area. Nothing but now file1 is in the staging area, I can commit this one, but not file2. If I want to add this one to my repository, then first I need to send it to the staging area, then only I can commit it. Okay, now let's do it again. Git add dot, or else I can do git add file2.txt. So it is going to add my file to staging area. Now if I check git status, both the files are in staging area, nothing there in the outside of staging area. Now I would like to commit these changes to my repository. To commit these changes to my repository, I should execute a command called git commit. Okay, git commit followed by your commit message. Commit message nothing but what changes you have done and what is the commits you are doing. Why? Because multiple developers are working and each developer might be doing his own changes, right? So this commit message represents what changes he has done in this commit. Okay, so before committing I'm going to execute one more command, that is git log. Okay, so git log is a command which tells you that what and all commits you have done on your repository. If you see, there is no commits yet. Why? Because this is a fresh repository. Even though we added our files to our staging area, we haven't committed our changes to the repository. So git status will tell you that where exactly your files are there. Git log tells you that whether you have committed your changes or not. Okay, now I'm going to execute again git commit followed by the message. I'm going to tell that this is my first commit. Okay, I'm giving this is my first commit, but whenever you are giving commit you need to use the -m flag. Okay, -m flag represents to the commit id. Without -m flag it doesn't take it up. Now let's execute and you can see the output of this one. So master so and so, this is my first commit, and two files has been changed, nothing but two files has been added, and three instructions. Why? Because in one file two lines are there, another file one line is there, and plus nothing but we have added those files. If you remove some files on the existing file, then you can see minus over here. And created mode, nothing but current permissions on your file. So 644 is the default permission is available on these two files. This is how we can commit our changes to our repository. Now if I do git status, you should not able to see any files under working directory or staging area. Why? Because whatever files we have or whatever files we have created, those files are added to staging area and also committed to our repository. And if I check git log now, you can see one commit. Just to see this one, git commit, and it also giving a commit id. Yes, I missed to explain about it. This is the SHA code or commit id we can call. So commit id will have the lengthy one, but first six characters would be fine to find out our commit because it is unique for each commit. And there is a head represents to the master. We are going to talk about this one in the later. And author, you just see this one, we have set up my username and email id, right? So this is going to display over here, nothing but who has done this commit and when he has done this commit and what is the commit id. This is the information. So like this we can commit our changes and we can track these changes. So now by looking at this commit, I can understand what commit he has done and what is his intention to made his commit, and also who has done this commit and when he has done this commit and what is commit id. All this information is displayed over here. Like this, whenever we add any commits, it is going to add in the git log that we can identify by using the git log command. Okay, so far we have done only one commit. Okay, so this is how we need to add those files. Now you may ask that is there any way to bypass this procedure? No, we must add our files first to staging area and then we can add it to the repository. Sometimes we can directly add to the repository if those files are already updated, but anyway we are going to see that one in the later point of time. But it must go with the staging and repository. Now I'm going to quickly show you the what and all commands we have executed. It is kind of recap. So we have executed a command called git add that adds files into the staging area. Then we have executed git commit that add changes to the local VCS. Nothing but in our laptop we have created a repository. To that repository we have added, right? Now git status shows current stage of repository, means in which location your existing files are available. That tells about the git status. Then git log shows commit history. We have seen how many commits we have done on our repository by using git log. So these are the commands we have used in this lecture. That's all for this lecture. See you in the next lecture.